Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is release weekly videos teaching people how to produce music on their iOS device. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the basics of how to use the Master Strip plugin inside of Cubasis 3 right after this. And remember folks, if you do enjoy this content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Now just a quick word on mastering for those that don't understand what this means yet. So what mastering actually is the final step in the overall music production process, and is used to balance out all the sonic elements of a stereo mix to optimize playback across as many devices as possible. Or in more simple terms, mastering is used to make your song loud enough to compete with the rest of the songs in the marketplace, as well as make it sound as good as possible wherever the listener happens to be, whether that's in their car or in a movie theater or on their phone. Now, since mastering is the final step in the overall process, it becomes extremely important to first make sure that your mix sounds good. And that means making sure that all of your tracks are properly gain staged and all of your instruments are set in their proper frequency range. Because basically, if your mix doesn't sound good in the first place, then your master isn't going to sound very good either. Luckily though, Cubasis does come with all of the EQs, compressors, and limiters that you need to properly mix your track first before applying this very comprehensive mastering suite plugin on top of it all. Alright, and now with that intro aside, let's hop right into Cubasis and start playing with this mastering strip. Now real quick before we do get started, we did think that it was very important to mention the power of reference tracks. Using a reference track in the same genre of the song that you're producing that's already been properly mixed and mastered can really help you learn exactly what you need to know to bring your song up to that level. For today's video though, a reference track is a little bit out of scope, as we'll just be applying the mastering plugin on a track that we made during our Wednesday live streams that air every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alright, now let's go ahead and get started on a UI overview of the mastering plugin. Now the first thing that we're going to do is add the plugin on our master track, so we're going to go to the mixer in the top left hand corner, and let's scroll all the way to the right here, and let's go to our master track or stereo out, and tap on the E to add an effect, and then we're going to add a plugin by clicking on tap to add effect. We'll go to our internal effects, and scroll down a little bit until we see the master strip, there it is, and let's tap on the master strip. Now just like any plugin inside of Cubasis 3, you can of course resize this to be small or large, depending on whether you'd like to focus on the project more, or you'd like to focus on the plugin more. Personally, when I am using this plugin, I do like to make this as big as possible. So we can stretch this all the way to the top, and then tap our list browser to expand this even further. Now as you can see, this really isn't that complex of a plugin for a mastering suite. Everything is nice and organized by color and into these three sections. Now if we turn our attention to the far left-hand side of the plugin, we can see that it is split up into three different screens. The first one is the Multiband Compressor, then the Stereo Imager, and finally the Loudness Maximiser. Now the Multiband Compressor is used to add punch and sheen and glue to your tracks, and is split up into three different frequency bands, which is going to be your high-end or treble, and then your mid-range, and then finally your lows or your bass. And you can even adjust these frequency ranges by moving these lines either left or right. So we can set our bass all the way up to 170 Hz if we'd like, though you probably don't want to do that. Or we could adjust our high end here, our high frequency ranges, to not start until around 3.5 kHz. With these sliders, it can become really easy to dial in the exact frequency range that you'd like for these three bands. Now the next plugin in this suite is the Stereo Imager, and this can be used to add extra width and extra depth to your tracks. And again, everything is separated into these three bands, into these three different frequency ranges that you can adjust at any time by moving these sliders. And finally, we have the Loudness Maximiser, and this is going to allow you to provide extra volume and extra oomph to your track so that it can be competitive alongside the rest of the songs in the marketplace. So three really great tools to help you master your track, and this plugin, just like the rest of the plugins inside of Cubasis, will come with a bunch of factory presets to help you get started learning how to use the plugin. So we can tap on our list browser here and then tap on factory presets, and see that there is a bunch to choose from, including things like 70s and 80s era presets, and acoustic rock, presets for dance music like dance pump and electronic bass, so pretty much presets for any kind of genre that you're looking for. And like I said, these presets can really provide a great starting point, a great foundation for newer producers who are still trying to learn about all this stuff and learn how it all works. But today we're not actually going to be using these presets, we're going to be starting from scratch, so we'll just tap on the default, and then we'll hide the preset window by tapping on the List Browse button. Now before we get any further, let's go ahead and play this demo track and hear what it sounds like before we start using the plugin. Alright, there we go, sounding pretty good so far. Now, as we did say at the beginning of the video, you do want to make sure that all of your tracks are mixed and gain staged first, because if your overall mix isn't good, then the mastering isn't going to be any good either. So for example, we can take a look at a couple of these tracks and see that they already have a studio EQ and a channel strip on them. The same goes for all of our drum samples here, and our chords and bass and so on and so forth. So the mix at this point is sounding pretty decent, so now it's time to apply this plugin. Now generally when you are mastering, you do want to go to the loudest part of the song, so what we'll do is we will set our locators here all the way to the very last part, the final chorus of this song. Now the first thing that I want to do is just have you hear what this track sounds like with the master channel on its default preset. So let's go ahead and A/B that real quick. First I'll put on my headphones, and then we will hit play. So right away already, you can hear that there is a pretty big difference. Just using the default preset there is already making everything sound a little bit louder and a little bit clearer. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go in order of these plugins. So first we'll mess with the Multiband Compressor, then the Stereo Imager, and then the Loudness Maximiser. And let's start playing with the compressor. Now by default, all the thresholds here are set almost all the way to the end, so that the compressor won't actually be kicking in right away. Now what's really cool is that in addition to being able to adjust these frequency band ranges to wherever you'd like by dragging these left and right, you can also adjust the volume of each one of these frequency ranges by tapping on the circle in the center. So you can lower the mid-range if you'd like, and increase the dB of the low end, or maybe decrease the low end a little bit and increase the top end a bit. And then when you combine all these settings with the threshold dials below, you can really see how versatile the plugin is and how it can really become super aggressive or just barely felt, depending on what you'd like to have for your taste of this song. So let's reset all this real quick. We'll double tap everything, set everything back to 0, and then we'll double tap on the frequency ranges to set those back to default as well. All right, now let's go ahead and start playing with the low end here and see what we can do. Let's hit play. Alright, we've dialed in the threshold a little bit to give this a little bit of compression, and we've increased the volume by 1 dB, and you can always toggle your compression settings for this specific range by tapping the on and off button right below. And you can also A/B the entire multiband compressor by tapping on the on and off button in the top left-hand corner. So a lot of options here to really dial in the sound that you're looking for. Alright, now let's finish adjusting our settings in the mid-range and the top end. Alright, now that we have our compression settings dialed in, let's A/B test this by enabling and disabling just the compressor part of this mastering plugin. So first, let's start out with it disabled, and then hit play. So already you can begin to hear some of the sheen in there, some of the compression hitting. It's certainly a little bit louder and definitely less muddy, and it's already starting to sound a little bit more like a record. Alright, now next up is the Stereo Imager. We're going to use this to add some extra width and depth to our track. And like we said, just like the compressor, you have these 3 frequency ranges to work in. But in addition to that, you actually have a panning option here as well per frequency range. So you can actually pan the bass to the left or the top end to the right. Now, of course, you probably don't want to do this too much in the mastering process, but this particular plugin can be used as an insert effect on any single track as well. It doesn't just have to be put on your master track. So this can be a very, very powerful plugin in the mixing process as well. Alright, now let's begin dialing in some of this width here. So just like before, we'll start out with the low end first and then go from there. Now, generally speaking, you usually want to have your bass as close to mono as possible, but that definitely does change per genre. And there's always exceptions. Some people actually prefer their bass to be stereo, and some people don't. But as you can hear on this track, we are using a stereo bass. So I am going to try to allow a little bit of that stereo through. And that means in this case, having a stereo width of around 15 to 20%. And again, you can always A/B your settings by toggling the on and off button below the frequency range. So let's just try A/Bing the low end real quick, and then after that, we'll continue on to the rest of the frequency ranges. Alright, that's starting to sound pretty good, so let's go ahead and A/B the entire stereo imagery here real quick, and then we'll move on to the Loudness Maximiser. Alright, so definitely sounding better and better with each one of these plugins that we add. Now, generally speaking, you don't want to make any one of these sections too wide, because once you start doing that, you start having phase issues, and the song can sound completely different or distorted on different devices. So it can sound good on some devices and then terrible on others. But when used properly, it definitely can bring a ton of depth to your track. Alright, now that we've applied the multiband compressor and the stereo imager, the final tool in this mastering suite will be the Loudness Maximiser. Now, as we said, this tool is used to bring up your overall track's volume to make it competitive alongside all the other songs on Spotify, iTunes, or any other place that people listen to music. Now, the first setting we're going to look at here is on the far left-hand side where it says Classic or Modern. Now, the Classic setting is set more for acoustic instruments or classical music, while the Modern setting has a bit more punch and is a bit more in your face and is used for more contemporary or electronic music. For our track, we are going to set this to Modern because this is more of a poppy, more of electronic type of track. And then right in the center, we have our Optimize button, which by default is usually set around 25%. Increasing this knob will increase the overall volume of your mix. And then finally, on the far right-hand side, we have the Soft Clip setting. Now, this is more akin to soft tube saturation and can really be used to drive your track to really loud levels. So you definitely want to make sure to be careful with that setting. So for now, actually, we're going to leave this off. Now, in addition to the Optimize button in the center, you also have a Mix button below that. So when you combine the Optimize button and the Mix level, you can really dial in the exact amount of loudness that you want for your track. Now, before we start applying this Loudness Maximizer, I do want to issue a warning to all the people out there that are currently listening in their headphones. This is going to get pretty loud, folks. So just keep that in mind. Make sure to keep your hand on the volume button. Alright, now let's try to dial in this setting. So let's hit play. Alright, I actually ended up applying the soft tube compression there. It does sound a little bit better with it. Now it's time to listen to an A/B test here, so let's first disable the Loudness Maximiser, and what we'll do is enable it while we're playing so you can hear the difference, and then after that, we're going to A/B the entire plugin itself, the entire mastering strip. Alright, so let's start out with this disabled and hit play. So for sure, a pretty big difference there using this Loudness Maximiser. Definitely raises the overall volume to competitive levels. Alright, now it's time to A/B the entire Mastering Suite plugin, which includes the Loudness Maximiser, Stereo Imager, and Multiband Compressor. So we'll start out with the plugin disabled, and then we will hit play and enable it as it's playing. Alright, definitely a big difference there from the Mastering Suite plugin. Lots of extra compression in there, lots of extra sheen, lots of extra depth. And really you can hear the difference going from just like a regular muddy production to a full-on record. I won't quite say radio quality because of course everything on there is mixed and mastered by Grammy Award-winning mixing and mastering engineers. But nevertheless, you can definitely get pretty close here. And now for the final part of the video, I do want to show you guys the difference between a mastered wave file and an unmastered wave file. So what you are looking at here is two separate audio waveforms. One is mastered and one is not. And as we can see right away, especially if we zoom in here a little bit more, is that the bottom waveform is much thicker and therefore much louder. And you can see that there's far less difference in transients here. And what I mean by that is you can see here that there's these big peaks all over across this waveform, where in the mastered waveform, they're much smaller and closer together. This is due to the compression that's applied to the overall track, effectively making sure that the loud sounds aren't too loud and the quiet sounds aren't too quiet. Again, making sure that the song is going to sound as best as it can across any device. So there is definitely a visual difference that I want you to be aware of here so that you can start to pick apart exactly what is going on between these two waveforms. So let's just quickly A/B these real quick. We'll start at a spot over here, maybe towards the beginning of the song. Let's mute the mastered and go back and forth between the mastered and unmastered. Alright, there you have it folks. So hopefully this video did make sense in teaching you why you'd want to master your track, as well as incentivizing you to give the master strip a try to achieve that process. Alright, and now it's time again for our final thoughts. And if you are still rocking with us, then we just can't thank you enough for being here, and we especially can't thank those enough that are here every single Wednesday and Friday to watch our live streams and our live premieres. Now we do hope that this video does provide you a great introduction on how to use the Mastering Strip plugin, because the mastering process overall can get pretty deep. So do make sure to do your research, because not only are there a ton of great videos out there teaching you how to master, there's actually a bunch of videos teaching you how to master in specific genres. But what is really cool is that this mastering plugin is already pretty versatile and comprehensive, and comes with loads of presets that can pretty much cover any genre that you need. Now, just really quickly, I do want to apologize for not getting a video and a live stream out last week, and that of course was due to me being pretty sick. I had a bit of a head cold there, so definitely had to stay in bed for a few days and rest up. But I do have some pretty awesome and amazing news to share with you about the channel. And that news is that we finally hit 5,000 subscribers. So thank you so much to all who have supported the channel over these last 2 years. And to celebrate, we are launching a brand new completely free MIDI pack called Modern Pop that comes with 60 MIDI files. We've again partnered with Doug over there at the Sound Test Room to bring you some super uplifting melodies and chord progressions that all have a real summertime vibe feel to it. And you can find that completely free MIDI pack, as well as a brand new premium ambient melody pack called Serenity, on our website at MobileMusicPro.com. And of course, we always have a ton more content coming down the pipe for you folks, so if you do want to keep up with everything that we're doing over here at the channel, including contests, giveaways, and new sample packs, then definitely make sure to check out our completely free mailing list at MobileMusicPro.com. And so, until next time everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you later. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of Cubasis on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.